What if the next medical breakthrough could change thousands of lives? Welcome to Moving Medicine Forward, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on groundbreaking healthcare innovations. I'm your host, Jeremy Schrand, and together with CTI's leading experts, we explore the cutting edge of clinical research transforming patient care. Each episode, we dive deep into the stories behind medical advancements, featuring insights from global therapeutic experts who are literally changing how we understand and treat critical disease. From rare genetic conditions to revolutionary treatment protocols, we're not just discussing research, we're highlighting the human stories driving medical progress. On this episode, we have a heartfelt conversation with two representatives from Network for Hope, an independent nonprofit organ procurement organization. Hospital Partnership Liaison and former CTI team member Sara Russo and donor-recipient and Network for Hope advocate John D. Mock explain how the wonderful organization helps families on both sides of organ and tissue donation. Welcome to the podcast, Sara and John. We are so lucky to have you today. I can't wait to hear about the Network for Hope mission. But to start us off, let's talk about who each of you are. Sara, give us a little quick introduction. And I know that you used to work for CTI, but now you're no longer with CTI. So tell us about yourself a little bit.
Thank you so much for having us. So I started my career actually at Cincinnati Children's working in clinical research, but was bedside. So spent a lot of time inpatient and outpatient settings with patients and families. Absolutely loved it, but I kind of got to the point where I felt like I had learned a lot and was time to go and learn and do something new. Heard about CTI through a mentor of mine who actually heard that Tim Schroeder was an amazing person and that I should look into CTI. So that is how I ended up here. Absolutely loved it, loved my time here. As I mentioned earlier, believed strongly in the mission, but found myself really missing the hospital setting. Was used to that at Children's. It was always important to me to feel really close to the impact. So I heard about Network for Hope, formerly LifeCenter, through someone that was a professor of mine in undergrad. And that's how I ended up at Network for Hope. And it's kind of the perfect job for me because I'm in the hospital and with people all the time, which I absolutely love and feel really close to that impact, which is what I was looking for.
And then John, let's get your background.
My background, for all intention and purposes today for this podcast, is working with Sara and Network for Hope. My connection is as an organ recipient, and I'm an ambassador with Network for Hope, and I have deep connections and ties to organ, eye, and tissue donation, and even specifically when it comes to CTI and their contract research organization and the studies that they've helped conducted, which have had an impact on my life.
Awesome. So let's dive into that a little bit. What promoted you, both of you, to get involved with Network for Hope, and how does this organization impact your own life and view of the sector of service?
Sure. In addition, for me to really looking to be at an organization where I felt like I was making a difference, that's always been important to me. It has impacted me in a big way. I come from a family that had never spoken about registry status or organ donation. I find in my work that there are families who very much have those conversations. Sometimes we have families in the ICU that will ask their physician or ask their bedside nurse, hey, I know my husband or mom or dad or wife is registered to be an organ donor, and what does that mean, and what do the next steps look like when they know the prognosis of their loved one? But I come from a family that had never spoken about that, and it has changed. What has changed for me is having those conversations with my family, letting them know I am registered. If I'm ever in this unfortunate situation where I'm in an ICU on a ventilator, these are my wishes, and this is the decision that I've made. I encourage people all the time to know the wishes of the people in your life that you love, and vice versa. So it's had a huge impact on me, and there's not a week that goes by that I don't put myself in the shoes of a donor family and what they go through. So it's present on my mind a lot.
And John?
My experience is very personal because I am an organ recipient, specifically a life-saving liver transplant. My organ donor was a 41-year-old father of three who died suddenly as a result of asphyxiation. We were a perfect match. I was on the wait list, and I had about 6 weeks, plus or minus, left to live. You can understand, you and the audience, when you have so little time left to live, and then your hopes and prayers are answered because someone proactively made a decision to become an organ, eye, and tissue donor in the event the worst case scenario would happen. I took that very seriously and deeply reflected on it. There's a situation known to many called survivor's guilt. Why did someone have to die just so that I could live? Mm-hmm. And through the resources of Network for Hope and UC Health and their counseling services, I found out very quickly that it helped not only me personally to move forward in my journey post-transplant, but also how important it was for me to help educate others, whether they're on the journey or considering registering, the importance of making that decision and being able to share my story as an ambassador working with Sara and others helps not only me, but it also helps my donor family with their grief and moving forward in their process. And we have a wonderful relationship, my donor family and I. So I made the decision to become an ambassador and speak openly and positively in the hopes that someday organ transplantation, organ, eye, and tissue donation becomes an obligation and not just a consideration.
The merger between KODA and LifeCenter occurred in October of 2024, bringing forth Network for Hope. How has this merger specifically worked to expand the scope and outreach of organ donations?
Yeah, I think the merge between our two organizations has been beneficial. There has been so much work that has gone into merging our processes, right? Organ procurement organizations across the US, we're all facilitating donation and transplantation, but we do work a little bit differently. So there's been so much work that has gone into making sure our processes align. We are now one organization, so we don't want to say LifeCenter does this up here and KODA does this down there. That we are one now, and we want to operate that way. But most importantly, and to answer your question, is that we went. So I'm a employee formerly of LifeCenter, which is what we now call our North region. We served a population size of about 2 million. Now with this merge, we're now serving nearly 7 million people. Went from the 5th smallest OPO in the nation to the 16th largest. So we are now one of 55 organ procurement organizations, or OPOs as we call them, across the nation. There are lots of organizations, right, that are doing the same thing. CMS actually wants less of these organizations to exist. So we merged. It's been super exciting. There's been a lot of work. We were a team of about 100 or so at LifeCenter, and we now have around 300 employees. So it's been really exciting. The outreach that we're able to do with more staff and serving that many more people has been huge. We have, of course, we had a community relations team at LifeCenter. Their whole goal is to educate the public about organ, tissue, and eye donation. Now that we've merged with KODA, we have a much larger team, and we're able to impact and get in front of the community in ways that we were not able to before.
It's very impressive to see that network expand and how many people that you cover. So you provide this your own donor care unit here in Cincinnati dedicated to the care of organ donors. How does the facility operate and allow for faster organ recovery process?
Yeah, I am super excited to tell you all about the donor care unit. So we call it the DCU. So our donor care unit, Network for Hope's donor care unit, is housed within the Flex ICU, which is at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. Really, the whole goal of a donor care unit is to increase the number of organs available for transplant, thus saving more lives. The goal really is not to be super fast in doing that. Of course, we want to be more efficient, and we certainly have done that in the donor care unit. But the whole goal is to have more organs available for transplant. I'm super excited to share that we have already seen that. So we have had this is very new, the Flex ICU opened at UC. It's a brand new ICU, opened in October, which is actually when we merged. October 1st, the Flex ICU opened. Our donor care unit is there. Dr. Jordan Bonimo, who is the medical director of the Flex ICU, amazing physician. He wears many hats. He's a neurocrit care. He works in the CVICU, works in the Flex. He's also a CrossFit coach. So he wears a lot of hats. But he really built the Flex ICU with a mission of organ donation, which has been really special. Our organs transplanted per donor is something that OPOs like Network for Hope watch really closely. And I'm super happy to share that we have already seen that increase quite significantly, which is awesome. So it's been special.
Do you foresee like the organization expanding like this kind of donor care unit across the country, across your guys' region?
I think so. As we are operating right now, we are transferring brain dead donors, of course, with the family's blessing and permission, to the donor care unit at UC. It's been really important for me in my role as well that other hospitals don't feel like we are taking a patient from them or taking a donor from them. It's not that at all, right? I don't want another hospital that we work with and have an amazing relationship with, to think, oh, they think they can do it better at UC and we can do it here. And lots of hospital staff really find a lot of pride taking care of donors and donor families. So right now, we are transferring brain dead donors to the Flex ICU, to the donor care unit in our small former Life Center service area, but I would not be surprised if that expanded larger. But it's really exciting because it's the first donor care unit in our region. There are other OPOs across the United States that facilitate hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of donors every year that have had donor care units. But the NASM report came out that strongly suggested and encouraged OPOs to establish donor care units, all with the goal of saving more lives and having more organs available for transplant, which we have seen already in the donor care unit embedded within the Flex ICU at UC.
So I know that Network for Hope commits to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or DEIB. Your outreach includes educating communities on how who may be distrustful of organ donations and transplants or believe that they are unfit to donate. What are common misconceptions of the process, and how does the organization work to combat them?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And my role with the organization is education. So I do lots of formal and informal presentations. And my goal for Network for Hope is when I'm in a hospital working with staff, I'm doing all of that so that when my teams come on site to facilitate a donor, they have hospital staff that know how to work alongside them. So in presentations that I give, we talk a lot about myths and misconceptions, and there are many of them when it comes to organ donation. One that is very common that you hear a lot is the hospital will not do everything they can to save my life or save my husband's life or my dad's life if they know that he's registered, or they won't do everything they can to save my life. So something that I'm telling nursing staff all the time is, don't know if you know this or not, but registry status is not an EPIC, which is the electronic medical system that hospitals use. It's not a secret. If we're on site to speak with a donor family, we collaborate so closely with hospital staff. It's not uncommon for my team or myself, right, to tell a physician or tell a nurse, hey, this patient is registered. And that changes the conversation. Or, hey, this patient is not registered, and we need that family's authorization. So that's a big misconception. I always say when I'm speaking with nurses, like, I hope everyone in this room knows that that's not true, that the hospital is not going to do everything they can to save your loved one's life. But there's a lot of mistrust. And there are people that really do believe that the hospital won't do everything they can to save their loved one's life if they know that you're a registered donor.
It goes a little broader, deeper, wider than that too. When I work education tables or events, I hear things like, well, I'm too old, or it's against my faith, or Jim would not have wanted this. I have AIDS. There's a lot of, as Sara says, misconceptions or myths out there that exist in a synagogue, or is the Catholic Church against this? And it varies against different faiths and races and age groups and socioeconomic populations, but that's a decision that needs to be made at the specific time with a clinical care team, with an OPO, with family, done reverently, respectfully, and by the book. And that's what we do. So education is important to dispel any of those myths.
Yes, and I believe just from hearing you speak at our staff meeting earlier today, and then on this podcast, you can really tell that there's this personalized approach with the Network for Hope and the OPOs and how they approach everything. So I think it's very interesting, and it is such a personal journey And it's
Well,
really
let's be clear. You are dealing with families at the height of grief,
right.
and it takes empathetic, compassionate care and communication to make sure that all parties are brought together with the understanding that the gift of donation is critically important. I'm a direct result of a family and an individual who made that decision that should the worst ever happen, two people would not have to die.
Network for Hope does not only focus on donor processes, but what comes after for those involved. Can you speak more on how that works
Yeah,
with the
absolutely.
donors?
So when we get in front of a family who is losing their loved one in the ICU, someone from the family support team is speaking with that family. If we receive authorization for that case, we work that case, their loved one becomes a donor, that family support coordinator follows that family for 6 weeks. So we share outcomes with them, right? That your loved one's heart was able to save. A 30-year-old woman in the Midwest who can now spend more time with her niece and nephew. So they get outcome calls. We do a lot of memory making. So our organization, we record the heartbeat of their loved one who is passing, and we give heartbeat bears. We have tons of grief resources, lots of grief resources for children. So we support families in the short term for 6 weeks by that family support coordinator. They are then passed over to our aftercare department at Network for Hope that works with these families for a minimum of 18 months. It's been really important to me in my role to share that with nurses and physicians because they often develop such rapport and such good relationships with these donor families, and then they leave, right? Their loved one goes to the OR for that procurement and recovery, and then they go home, and those nurses and physicians are wondering, what happened? Was he or she able to save any lives? Was that family okay? They may have been a part of a beautiful honor walk, which I'm not sure if you've seen one of those, but oftentimes with families' permission, if they want one, on the way to the operating room, people line the hallways, nurses, friends, families come in as that donor is on their way to be a hero and save other people's lives. So that family gets passed over to aftercare department. And we do so much with them. Lots of them come and become ambassadors, like John is. And we have twice a year what we call donor remembrance ceremonies that are required for all staff to attend. It's on a Sunday from 2 to 4. It really is a somber experience. These donor families, our last one, we had over 500 donor families come.
Wow.
And it's the past 6 months we recognize and honor all of those donors. So the family will pick a beautiful picture of their loved one, and you see it up on the screen, and we read each donor's name to honor these heroes.
That's incredible. I bet that's incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do so much. We have picnics and potlucks and a lot of other things to really, really take care of our donor families who often become like family to Network for Hope.
And John, being a recipient, like obviously you know who your donor was. What is that process normally like? Is it, when do you get to contact the family? Like what is it normally?
My journey is remarkable, and I would say every journey is unique, but I think mine's incredibly unique. We have to remember, Jeremy, it is a personal decision on both sides of the donation equation. In our liver support group, transplant support group at UC Health, we get together on a regular basis and we talk about how deeply we want to be connected to our donor families. And sometimes it is so personal that we discuss amongst ourselves, well, I want to reach out to my donor family. But every time someone picks up a pen and tries to put it to paper and write a letter, it is so emotionally difficult for them to write a letter to someone who saved their life.
Right.
And on the other hand, sometimes it's too emotionally impactful for a donor family to reach out to a recipient. In my remarkable case, both the donor family and I felt it was so important to get to know each other, not only to say thank you so much for the gift of life. I can't believe the grief that you must be going through right now. But on their side, we want so desperately to know who received our son's, my husband's heart, liver, kidneys, eyes. 27 days post-transplant, I was able to meet my donor family at the offices of Life Center, now Network for Hope. We continue to have a relationship. We text, we talk, we have breakfast. I take my donor's mother out every year on my transplant anniversary, which is her birthday.
Wow.
And they now, my donor's name is Cleet. Cleet's widow, Carrie, Cleet's widow's mother, Gay, are also now ambassadors at Network for Hope.
Wow.
And when we have the ability to speak together and share our journey on the donor family side and the recipient side, it becomes very impactful and we hope encouraging for other individuals to consider that organ, eye, and tissue donation is something that's critically important in the lives of others. So working with OPOs like Network for Hope as a conduit to bring donor families and recipients together in our case has been instrumental in moving forward in the journey on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, one thing I should mention as well that Network for Hope started probably a few months ago now is a writing station. So I got to be a part of this with our aftercare department, where in the outpatient transplant clinic at UC, we developed a really pretty table, and it's a writing station that encourages recipients who have very regular appointments with their transplant docs, encourages them to write to their donor families.
Mm-hmm.
So I visit that writing station once a week to grab letters out of the lockbox. It's actually one of my favorite part of the weeks that I get to share with the aftercare department at work of like, we got a letter, which means that a transplant recipient wrote to their donor family.
Mm-hmm.
So we do encourage that and work to facilitate bringing donor families and recipients together. John's story certainly is very special, especially with how soon after the transplant it happened. And it's a very personal decision. There are lots of transplant recipients that never meet their donor families. Some families are very interested in meeting someone that has the liver of their loved one. And for other people, it's too hard. And everyone's journey is very different. But we do have this beautiful, awesome writing station in the outpatient transplant clinic at UC that I hope we can implement at other transplant centers in our service area.
I think the concise answer to your initial question is there is an exact process that is followed.
Yes.
Typically, there is a 6-month grieving window before a letter will be sent to a donor family. And correct me if I'm inaccurate here. But when a donor family decides to reach out, certain information might be redacted until both sides agree to actually meet, whether it's via mail or phone call or in person. But that process is flexible to some degree, and in my case, I was blessed that immediately, I asked my daughter right before I went into surgery, please reach out to Life Center. It's important that I let the donor family know how much I appreciate and how sorry I am. At the same moment, when my donor was getting ready to go into surgery after his honor walk, his soon-to-be widow was also saying, I want to know who receives Cleet's liver. Not his heart, not his kidneys. I don't know why, but that's how we came connected. So it's flexible, but there is a process.
Yes. So April is National Donate Life Month, which provides plenty of opportunities to get involved in the cause by registering through donatelife.net but out of all those opportunities and things that are going on, what are you personally looking forward to the most? And just based off of what was fun last year versus this year, what are you looking forward to around Donate Life Month?
I love that question. April is a very busy month for people that work in this industry.
Yes.
We have so many flag raisings, and I think that is what I'm most looking forward to. So we have our flag raising ceremony is what we call them at hospitals that we work with. And it really is to honor donor families and recipients and all the people who were on the wait list that did not receive their life-saving transplant in time. And it's a way for us as Network for Hope to thank hospital staff for all they do and working alongside us to facilitate donation and transplantation. So what I'm really excited about UC's is next Friday at 2 p.m. I think, and they have a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. But someone from Transplant typically speaks, and the CEO, Barry Massa of Network for Hope speaks, and we have typically a donor family and a recipient share a story. And I love the flag raising ceremonies, and hopefully nurses can get away from the unit for a little bit, and really it's a good reminder of why we do all we do. There are over 104,000 people in the United States waiting for a life-saving transplant, and it kind of gets people excited about the mission. So I think the flag raising ceremonies are my favorite part of April.
John?
To me, it's an opportunity to kick off more education to help others that might be on the bubble. The thing that excites me most is when I work an education table and I have even just one individual come up and register, because it's awareness. You're there, right? So April's National Donate Life Month is all about increasing awareness. And the more individuals we can have sign up to be a registered organ, eye, or tissue donor, even just one, it's impactful. But when you work a high school event or a sporting event and you have dozens of individuals just because they know, they're aware now, that's one of the more exciting things I like.
So signing up to be a donor is obviously really, really great, and something that we do that we want everybody to do, but there's other ways you can support. How can the community, how can our listeners help support your mission?
I love that. I think the best thing to do is to speak with the people in your life that I mentioned earlier, and to know their wishes and to just engage in conversations. There are so many people that never talk about registry status or organ donation. We have Network for Hope has so many volunteer opportunities. You can visit us at networkforhope.org. You can become an ambassador with Network for Hope. There's so much education that is needed out in the community. We talked a little bit about those myths and misconceptions, but they are vast and they are real fears that people have. So people that are willing to volunteer their time with Network for Hope and do community outreach with us. We have a list probably a mile long of events that we do not only in April but year round out in the community. My role is with hospitals and hospital staff, but there's a whole team at Network for Hope. Their entire job is educating the community. So they would love nothing more than if people would sign up to volunteer at some of those events and speak with people in the community about what it means to register to be an organ, tissue, and eye donor.
Awesome. And we are also spotlighting Network for Hope as the North American Charity of the Quarter at CTI. So we'll have links to all of the stuff in the show notes. So if you're looking for these links, please check there. And thank you both for coming on the podcast today and talking about your experiences and what exactly Network for Hope does. We are so lucky to have such a great resource right in our backyard here where our headquarters is located in Cincinnati and all over Kentucky. So thank you again for joining us today.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy discovering how medicine is moving forward, or you are interested in how CTI could help you with clinical research, be sure to subscribe. Follow us on social media or visit our website at ctifacts.com.